Welcome to Tomorrow. My name is Jamie Higginbotham. I am joined by an epic panel today. We've got the Space Mike, a Ryan Caton, a Jared Head, and a Dutta. And this is going to be a really fun show. If you love the show, please help us feed the algorithm. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. It does help us quite a bit. And on that note, if there are a lot of people who are not my biggest fan, and this is your show because I'm going to go ahead and hand that baton off to Space Mike.
Oh, that's
and that's my transition. This is my transition in this show. I'm going to hand the baton off to Space Mike, and I'll see you guys later. Bye. Have fun.
Wow. I love you, Jamie. I don't feel that way. So, there's been a little bit of drama this week. Elon got into a fight with a couple of astronauts, and the biggest thing that concerns me is proposing retiring the ISS as soon as possible, preferably in 2 years by 2027. And I'm sure that, like me, there's lots of folks out there who are a little depressed and discouraged by the thought of that, but this is the reality that we are working with. And couple of things that I really wanted to bring up about this whole discussion. Certainly it's not, I'm not okay with the way that this discussion has gone about, but that's, in the grand scheme of things, neither here nor there. But when it comes to the International Space Station, it has had quite a few problems over the past couple of years. There's been lots of leaks, mainly from the Russian segment. There's even been a couple of problems with the organization that manages the experiments that go up to the International Space Station, at least, managing the American experiments. That organization is called CASIS. And, there certainly have been some things that probably could have been done better. And just in the whole idea of, doing things more efficiently and accountably, there probably are some things that could definitely be looked at to improve the program. No doubt about that. However, that being said, I'm quite discouraged at the thought of retiring it sooner than 2030 because it puts quite a few other programs in doubt as well. A lot of the companies that are working on building space station modules to replace the International Space Station through the LEO Destinations program, some of them might be ready by the by sometime next year, if not launching some demos but before the end of this year. But there isn't really I don't think any of them are going to be ready to start taking over any sort of major operations in 2027 if this plan does come to pass. And also to consider a couple of things, it's not just up to us. I mean, there's lots of Congress people and senators within the American Senate that, are, especially Texas, for example. The space station is I don't want to say lucrative, but it is lucrative. I mean, the Johnson Space Center is, primarily doing a lot of work with the International Space Station. And I don't know how you guys feel, but the only way that I would be okay with that sort of plan is if we have something to replace it and give those NASA folks something to do, basically. So yeah, I kind of want to go around. Go ahead, Dutta.
I would have two requirements for deorbiting the ISS, and the first would be something to replace it, or a plan at least with a solid schedule, not like paper rockets and ethereal. We'll get to it sometime during this time frame. I mean, like, engineers have thought
100%.
out all of the steps and they've got manufacturing facilities available and waiting. Like, all right, we're going to deorbit in 5 years, and we've already got a company started, and they're bending metal to be able to have something in place, in hand, to be able to make that transition from no ISS and no space station to no, like they've got to cross paths at some date, and not have this big valley in between.
100%.
Number two is the organization that is going to support that into the future. It's all well and good to say that we've got, Vast and whoever else that are going to make things to go up there, But we need something in place that kind of wrangles all these together. Now, it doesn't have to be NASA. And I want to make that clear. It does not have to be NASA, although that is what NASA, I believe, should be doing, is coordinating all of these different various aspects of engineering and research and science and humanities and all that. But something needs to be able to regulate all of these things and make the decisions about where each participating company should point their efforts. And they should all have a long-term plan and somebody in place in order to be able to make decisions and keep everybody on track and have penalties for being late and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jared, what do you think about these developments?
I think that I'm very much on board with the idea that replacing the International Space Station without something present, without a ability to continue your human presence, is short-sighted and a bad idea. In addition to that, you are correct, Mike, in that the people who are proposing this decision are not those who hold the purse and are not going to be the ones who make that kind of a decision. In addition to that, the purse is not held by the United States. The purse is held by partner nations as well that we operate the International Space Station with. So that is a very big problem. In addition to that, a lot of commercial providers that were supposed to have their commercial stations up and operational by now aren't. And obviously, hashtag that's aerospace. If you're going to have something operate on time, you're going to be the outlier in aerospace. You're not going to be the norm. What is it? What's the old saying go for us? On time, on budget, on Mars. So it picked two. So it's a bit of an issue in aerospace, and this isn't just something that happened recently. It's a historical issue throughout the history of aerospace. So, in the grand scheme of things, you could grandstand all you want. You could throw dates out all you want, but ultimately, if you're not the one who gets to make the decision, you don't get to make that decision. And then, in conclusion, for myself personally, if the International Space Station program is supposed to end, we should try to find a commercial entity to take it over and hand it to them. I would love to see what happened with Mir, or what was attempted with Mir, with Rick Tumlinson and his group, where Mir Corp came in and actually privately funded a mission to try to maintain Mir for everyone, or for a commercial entity later on down the line, even not Mir Corp, to operate Mir, but that didn't end up happening. So I want to take the Orphans of Apollo route with the International Space Station.
Let's back up for just a second, Mike, and answer Drew D's question. What is the benefit of a space station, even a commercial one, and what cost, including maintenance, would be worth that science? I think that's a relevant question. And the first thing that I would say is we don't know. And I know that sounds naive and sounds like it's not the right answer, but here's the thing about all of the research that's been done in space and space flight and space travel and getting humans into space is we didn't know any of this. And we set out to endeavor to do it so that we could figure it out. Right? Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of papers, a lot there was one particular nun or something that, and I'd have to dig this. I've mentioned this many times on the show. People were upset during the Gemini and Apollo programs that we're spending all this money. Like, why are we going to space? We should be fixing the problems at home. Okay, but a couple of points. We're spending this money on Earth in the places where all of these things are being built. So it's not like we're taking money and throwing it into space, number one. Number two is we are solving problems for humanity that we don't know that we didn't know we could solve by doing space research, right? So one big one is cancer research, for example. How many people on this planet suffer from cancer? And wouldn't it be awesome if we could stymie that number by a couple of percentage points, or fix it altogether by doing research that you can only perform in space?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We don't know. And look at all the material science and the chemical science and the biological science and the earth science that we didn't know that we could do until we were able to do it in space as a result of the programs that led up to, including all the way up to, you know, today's programs that are being operated on the ISS. The funding, the research, the results, because all of this goes through NASA, there's a better chance of it being widely published and publicly available, as opposed to a private company going, I'm going to keep all these answers for myself.
Great point. Lots of medicine. I mean, they've been able to develop medicines and treatments for multiple sclerosis, as well as other things. Health monitoring technology. I mean, the technology that we developed for the space program is what we're using in hospitals today. So great points of stuff that has had a great benefit. And even on a broader spectrum, I mean, we wouldn't have the sort of weather data that we have, or GPS for that matter, if not for the space program. So there are lots of benefits to it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Arvale has maybe one of my favorite ones, since people are always like, well, we should just go to the moon or go to Mars. Right? That's the argument being made right now, right? Ditch the International Space Station as soon as possible and go to Mars. Well, one of the reasons the International Space Station has been extremely helpful is that we've been able to operate a vehicle for a very long period of time, and a very complex vehicle for a very long period of time as well. The first module, Zarya, was launched into orbit almost 27 years ago, and we've been operating these things since then, right?
Yep.
So we have a very good knowledge set of what it takes to operate something like that. And before the International Space Station, the United States, we operated Skylab for a year, right? So we had 3 missions within the course of a year. And that was our experience with space stations, outside of flying space shuttles to help resupply and recrew Mir. That was it. And there was a lot of people that didn't think something like the International Space Station was going to be possible, that the logistics of it were going to be too much for it to actually happen. But we were able to determine how, in order to do on-orbit assembly of large structures and things, which, if you'd like to go to very far away places in our solar system, like beyond Mars, like say out to the asteroid belt or Jupiter's moons or something like that, you're going to probably need something of considerable size that's going to require more than, say, a starship in order to get out there. So, yeah, you're going to need to learn about big on-orbit assembly. So, there you go.
Real quick.
There are not very many things that would bring me back into this part of the show, but there is one big one, and that is because we are a live show, people who become members, people who help contribute to making the show go week after week, month after month. So really quickly, to interrupt, I did want to thank Morton Van Vick, and we had a second one pop in. I got to scroll down, whoever gets it next. Thank you. Joni Mahoney also became a member during this show. So thank you both very, very much for helping to contribute to the show.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Ryan, I would like to get some of your thoughts about this. What do you think about these?
Well, I started off with 3, then I had 4, so I don't know how many points I'll have, but I have some points that I would like to bring up. The first one is the ISS is older than its launch date, right? The US side, a lot of that started construction back in the Space Station Freedom days, the 1980s. A lot of the Russian side started construction back in the Mir 2 days, right back when it was the Soviet Union we were talking about, right? So a lot of the stuff on board the ISS isn't 27 years old, it's older, right? So it does make sense why we want to retire this station one day, because it's not young, to put it nicely. It's not young. It's been up there for a fair little while, and thanks to Drew D for the $5 super chat. The next point I wanted to mention is that I don't think leaving or deorbiting the ISS before we have an operational replacement is a good idea. Because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was proven that when we end a US operational space program without an operational replacement, we're going to be sitting on the ground for 10 years without the ability to launch US astronauts on a US rocket from US soil. You know, that was the line Jim Bridenstine liked to keep banging on about in 2020,
Great
right?
point.
If we deorbit the ISS before there is a commercial US operated alternative, the US will not have a space station. The US will lose low Earth orbit to the Chinese. You know, how is that going to play in the political world? I don't think that's going to play very well in the political world, because the Tiangong space station will be the only operational space station, and then international partners might start looking over to the other side and saying, hey, we've got this science that we really want to fly. China, can we fly it on your space station? I honestly do not believe, in the political sense, any politicians in the US would be a big fan of that idea, right? So I think that's the second important thing. The third thing is, I spoke with Eric Berger last Thursday, and he said that he heard that apparently Ted Cruz isn't very happy about the comments Elon made about deorbiting the ISS early. He's a big fan of the ISS program. and something that Ted Cruz happens to be in charge of is organizing the committees which, you know, maybe assign the next NASA administrator. So perhaps that's something that now might not go as smoothly as it could have gone before if Elon hadn't have made these comments. At least that's the drift I was getting from Eric. And then finally, the last thing is SpaceX. I don't think SpaceX would exist without the International Space Station. You know, SpaceX got all the funding in the early days from NASA because they were tasked to develop a commercial cargo resupply vehicle, and the Falcon 9, which was designed to launch Cargo Dragon. The first flight of the Falcon 9 launched a boilerplate Dragon. SpaceX would have completely died off, in my opinion, in those early days had NASA not supported them through the commercial cargo and subsequently the commercial crew program, both of which launched to the International Space Station. Elon Musk saying that he wants to kill off the International Space Station before any commercial space stations are ready, before the commercial low Earth orbit economy is thriving. You're just cutting it off early. You need to nurture this economy. And it kind of seems, this is pure speculation, but Elon Musk, who founded and is the chief of the most successful rocket launching company in history, saying that we should scrap the ISS, which is nurturing the current low Earth orbit economy, it just kind of seems like he wants to kind of cut everything off for everyone else and just leave SpaceX to be the only big space company that there is, right? At least that's how it kind of seems to me.
Excellent points, Ryan. This is why we love you. And yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there hasn't been anything official yet, but there's definitely a vibe out there that, I mean, with his comments about saying that the moon is a distraction and, you know, we've talked, you know, quite a bit about, you know, canceling SLS and potentially the entire Artemis program, including the Gateway Station. And as much as I would like to see us go to Mars, I don't want it to be at the expense of everything else.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, and there's definitely something to be said about not biting the hand that feeds you. You know, so you kind of don't want to do that. It is a matter of public record and a multitude of big pressers with Elon saying that SpaceX would not exist without NASA. So kind of figure you might want to retain a customer that kind of works really well with you there. So just kind of saying, you know.
This is another interesting question from Drew. Is the ISS costs around 16% of NASA's annual budget? What will that amount go away, or will it be allocated to other projects?
Yeah, right now it's about somewhere around $3 billion a year, and almost half of that is for the cargo and crew delivery. And that's not just SpaceX. That also goes a bit to Northrop Grumman with their Cygnus vehicle, um, and also other partners that for minor stuff of like getting like ESA payloads or JAXA payloads on those vehicles. Anyway, we would hope that it would be reallocated towards something else, but and I could be wrong about this. I'm just speculating here. The idea right now seems to be trying to be fiscally responsible and bring down our massive spending problem that we have in the United States government and try to get a handle on our debt. So I would hope that it would be reallocated, but my fear is that it would just not go towards anything, and NASA's budget
Yeah.
would permanently
Well,
be lowered.
look at it
But
historically. When Apollo ended, that money did not go anywhere else in NASA. It was gone. When Shuttle ended, that money did not go anywhere else in NASA. It was gone. So when Constellation ended, it was canceled. That money didn't go elsewhere in NASA. It was gone. So just
but
saying.
they're making all these cuts in ignorance of the return on investment, just as they did previously, where for every dollar you spend in NASA, you get $7 back, and everybody sees that as frivolous spending because they don't realize that's the case, and they don't see the value in any of this exploration. But at the same time, they're not also then using that money to solve other problems. They're just not spending it, or spending it in ways where it lines the pockets of billionaires, and like they're not doing any of this with in good faith or correctly, in my opinion.
I think it's also important to note that if you want to, cut government spending, an agency which makes up in 2023 0.4% of your total budget, I don't think you're going to find a lot of cost cutting there. Like, even if you killed off all of NASA, you would save 0.4%. Like, that's nothing. That's nothing.
It's even less than that. It's like 0.004%. We're talking about a $7 trillion annual budget and only 7 trillion, and NASA only gets 25 billion of that pie. So yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what would be some bigger pieces of that pie. Huh. What could be? Oh wait, one of those is very untouchable. So.
And if you want to start with small things, maybe stop golfing and going for tours on the Daytona 500 and going to Super Bowls. I'm just saying.
There's something great about complaining about remote workers from a putting green. But anyways.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, let's go.
I'm stopping right now. So, but credit where credit is due. At least there was a waiver put in for NASA's workforce, right? So, sort of. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah.
Gary says ISS is an unnecessary expense to taxpayers. Removing it would increase incentive for private enterprises to meet any useful ISS functions, and I wholeheartedly disagree.
Same. Because it's not like that money is going to come out of the ISS program and get put into private enterprise. So again, this is what we were just talking about with Apollo, right? So Apollo's canceled. Doesn't go anywhere. Shuttle's canceled. It doesn't go anywhere. So
unless we allocate more money to the LEO Destinations program and have more milestone based contracts with the companies that they've already selected and are working with, serious risk of that. However, does this present an opportunity for those companies and for other government agencies around the world to kind of take a look at all of this and find ways to be more efficient about it and find ways to do things better? We've learned a lot of lessons with the International Space Station, and I believe that if we were to do it again, that we could have a better operation. And something I would also like to throw out there is I would really like us to see putting something into polar orbit. The reason being that once other launch capabilities increase, that it would be a station accessible by every nation. most launch centers around the world can reach polar orbit. And that could be an opportunity to have even greater collaboration with other nations around the world. For me, the biggest value of the International Space Station doesn't really have a tangible monetary value. And that value is collaboration and a path to world peace in a way. I know that sounds naive and idealistic, but how incredible is it that we were able to, in the 80s and 90s, go through the planning stages with Cold War enemies and be do this whole program? And even with all the stuff going on with the Russian war, we've still been cooperating with Roscosmos to manage the station together. And I don't want to see that end. I want us to continue working with Roscosmos. I want us to continue working with the European Space Agency and with JAXA and with more. I want to open the door to India. I would love to open the door somehow to China. And China's space station is in a slightly different inclination, and it's inaccessible to the Russian launch centers, even though their technology is compatible and they could start, sending Soyuz missions to Tiangong if their launch centers could reach that particular orbit, which they can't unless they develop a bigger rocket to do, a crazy maneuver just to be able to get to that orbit and deliver the same amount of payload that a Soyuz capsule weighs. So to me, I know that it's not really a monetary value, but I feel like that peaceful purposes and global cooperation is far, far more valuable, in my opinion.
And it's so interesting, Mike, about your take on this as being a geopolitical win and a way for international collaboration to occur. The Artemis Accords are a very big next step in that, right? We're getting all of these countries together in order to try to get a lunar presence, a permanent lunar presence. But if you don't want to go to the moon and you just want to skip that and go to Mars, you're going to have to retool all of that and get people back on board with that. And that is something that will be very, very hard to sell to a lot of these countries. Many countries want to go to the moon because it's the new hotness. That is a place where a lot of people look at things like industry and stuff being able to be moved to. With Mars, it's a very hard argument, if any argument, to say things like heavy industry or a cis-Martian economy is something that's going to be very helpful for us on Earth in the near future, unlike the moon. So, yeah, the international collaboration was a really big part of the International Space Station. That transfer over from Space Station Freedom to Space Station Alpha, and then finally Alpha to the ISS that we now know of today. So, yeah, there's so many factors here that the folks who have proposed the dumping into the drink of 2027 have just not considered, thought of, or in general just are saying these things in order to grab the kind of rise that they want to be able to get out of people. So
Aravel agrees with you. ISS was a huge success geopolitically, but I'd rather see an international moon base as the next step. Me too. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I know Aravel means like a ground moon base, but I mean technically Gateway is a base around the moon and it's international club. Like just saying.
Yeah.
And it's not far off from an International Space Station, from the ISS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And I was going to say China's working on their own lunar base, and they're snatching up what we would have considered international partners left and right from that. So, wonder how the politicians of the United States feel about losing some of our key critical international partners to China's own. So.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that ESA has already flown some experiments up to Tiangong.
They have. Absolutely. Yes. Several countries that we are collaborating with on the International Space Station have basically decided to also work with China. I mean, that is their prerogative, right? They are allowed to do that. So.
Mm-hmm. Something else I do want to bring up is that we are lucky that the ISS is still around. It was supposed to have been deorbited already in 2020, and we've kept delaying it and pushing it back, beyond the warranties that everyone said that it would work well. And sure enough, after that, problems started happening. And so we are lucky that it's still even around. But I think a lot of us had kind of got this in our head of 2030s. And even Russia, kind of dragged their feet of, continuing their commitment. Right now, it's officially 2028. But they've talked about, continuing it on, all the way to 2030, especially since, the Zvezda module is so critical to being able to raise its orbit and even deflect pieces of space junk, every so often whenever they have emergencies like that. Not emergencies, but you know what I mean, warnings. It's okay, Mike. We bought the extended warranty. Is that what all those lobbyists were for? We're here to sell you an extended warranty.
I could just hear a Crew Dragon docking, and then they open up the hatch, and there's just a tape recorder inside. We've been trying to reach you about your extended space module warranty.
That's great.
If anything, that just shows that it was overbuilt.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, if there are any billionaires out there who can handle $1.5 to $3 billion a year, Boeing is trying to sell off their operations for monitoring and taking care of their segments for it. So it's not outside the realm of possibility for someone to take this over for a little bit.
Let me check my couch. I'll get right back to you.
Ooh, all right. That golden couch of yours where all the flakes fall into. Oh, man. But no, on a serious note, even if this were to end in 2027, SpaceX already has gotten a contract for the deorbit vehicle, basically a Super Dragon, to deorbit it in a controlled reentry over the Pacific. And so they would have to speed up their timetables just to get that going as well. Gary says ISS needs to be replaced before it fails catastrophically. Agree with that too. Oh, man. But yeah, I think that we all kind of agree and that we're all on this consensus that we definitely need something, some sort of cohesive plan to take that over. I think that we could still have lots of benefit of having a low Earth orbit space station, even a medium Earth orbit one. I think it would be great to have a lunar space station and a lunar base. And even if Gateway does get canceled, let's repurpose the power and propulsion module and the Halo module to be part of ISS 2.0. But yeah, maybe it's up to us to come up with some viable plans and pitch that to the decision makers.
Yeah, well, contact your local congressional critter and let them know what you feel about it. So maybe they'll listen.
One of my well, never mind. I was going to say one of my congressional people just so happens to be one of those astronauts that Elon was fighting with. So
okay,
that's going to be fun. Anyway, that doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Let's go around real quick. Any other final thoughts before we move on?
I figure it's going to be a shame that we deorbit the International Space Station when the time comes. I would love to see the materials just stay in space and we just rework them into something else. But that's just me. I'm very big into in-space manufacturing and things like that. So look at that. You've got a whole space station worth of material there. Why don't you just work with it? So, but that's all. It seems like it's very often wishful thinking on my part for what I want to see.
Yeah. Call out the Spirit Halloween store.
Yep. Well, they had a capsule last year. It was pretty good. So.
Ryan, do we have a poll?
We have a inter-segment trivia bonanza spectacular as usual.
All right. What have we got for us this week?
I'm just gonna sit here for a little bit longer and just wait for it to come up so I can then read it. There we go. Oh, here we go. Wonderful. So,
Oh, and welcome back, Jamie.
Jamie is back.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Jamie.
Still here. Oh, by the way, really quick, before Ryan goes into his intergalactic, what was it again, Ryan? Intersectional.
I can't remember.
You hand waved Drew for his super chat. He was like, "Oh, and thank you, Drew, for the super chat." But Drew did say, "Thank you for answering questions in such an in-depth manner," which I thought, I agree. Whether I agree or disagree, I'm really sad I wasn't part of that conversation because I have some opinions that are wildly different than your guys's. But we will leave those not for the show. Leave those not for the show.
Yeah.
So go ahead and take us into our poll.
I only had to hand wave that because if not, I would have forgotten everything else I wanted to say. And I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to get to the end of my train of thought. Okay, then.
That's
question, mid-segment question. Here we go. What is the name of the group of rovers NASA has designed to work as a group on the moon? Is it Lunar Scouts, #Scouts, Cadre, #Cadre, Moonrakers, #Rake, or Artemis Bots, #Bots?
Would
I
be
just
an
realized
incredible inside joke.
We broke our own rule of making people not have to spell. Whoops. Whatever. I'm gonna. Oh wait. We have to wait for the. Hang on. Wait. We're doing this all wrong. We have to give the chat room the music. The music. There it is.
Oh, there we go.
I forgot
Now it
about the
feels
music.
Right.
Now it's right.
Something
You
didn't
got
feel right.
Chat room has to vote by the time the music ends, which is exactly 30 seconds, which is 15 seconds too long for it not to be awkward.
Gotta put this banger back on.
Exactly. So, chat room, you're all voting collectively. Whatever your answer is, that is what the chat room says is the answer, and we will then mark the chat room's answers for a year-end thingy. See how you guys do compared to the hosts. All right, music is done. Chat room says it's Lunar Scouts. I'm going to say I like Cadre better. I'm going to say it's a Cadre. Wait, hang on. The other host hasn't gone.
Hold on. Let me take a wild. Let me take a wild guess at this. Is it perhaps Cadre? All right.
All right. So, Space Mike,
sorry, better luck next time, Jamie. Sorry.
Yeah, better luck.
What is your answer, Space Mike?
No, for real, Cadre though.
Cadre. All right, and Jared.
Cadre, yeah.
Cadre.
Hello.
All right, is that actually the correct? Ryan, is that the correct answer? What's the correct answer?
The correct answer is indeed Cadre. It stands for, I think it stands for Cooperative Autonomous Distributed Robotic Exploration, or something like that. Basically, it's little moon rovers JPL have developed, and they're going to launch them to the moon, and they're going to be able to, like, the idea is they'll work autonomously, but it's not autonomous like the Mars rovers are autonomous. It's like JPL will be like, do this thing, and then the robots themselves will vote for a leader robot, and then they'll go and do the thing JPL has told them to do. So basically, we're doing robotic democracy on the moon.
That's kind of awesome, actually. Also, the way everyone should have been able to tell is it was the only acronym on the screen, and you'd asked what NASA was going to name something, and if it's a NASA program, it is a backronym. It is always a backronym, and sometimes they are the most convoluted backonyms ever. But that is the only way NASA knows how to name things is via backronyms. So, yeah.
As a casual Bond fan, I was hoping for Moonrakers.
Wait, was that a Bond? Hang on, was that a Bond thing?
That's the Space Force rovers. We're not talking about that. That's classified.
Yeah, those are being built by the Drax Corporation.
Drax. All right, I think moving on. So for this next topic, Space Mike, I'll hand you the baton again. Goodbye.
Bye.
We'll see you. And actually, I'm going to hand the baton over again to Ryan because you had an interesting perspective for this next thing. A Falcon 9 upper stage had an uncontrolled reentry recently. What's going on with this? Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so As you may remember, last year Falcon 9 had a couple of flights with some dodgy second stage issues. There was the Starlink 9-3 mission, I believe, where on the ascent of the second stage we saw ice building up and some leaks around the Merlin vacuum engine. SpaceX then later lost that second stage and the satellites that it was carrying. This time, however, we're talking about the Starlink 11-4 mission, and there wasn't a second stage failure in the sense that the satellites couldn't be deployed, but there was a second stage failure in that the deorbit burn could not be conducted as was planned. So the second stage was passivated, I believe SpaceX, that's the terminology they use, and it was left orbiting the Earth. But of course, SpaceX deploys does the initial orbit for the Starlink missions is low enough such that if anything was to go wrong with the Starlink satellites, they quickly re-enter. It turns out the same thing happens with the second stage. If you leave it in that orbit, the little traces of atmosphere that are still floating around 300 odd kilometers, that eventually had enough drag to slow down the second stage for it to re-enter, and this time it re-entered over Europe, like just north of my house, which I didn't see it, unfortunately, because I was inside, and it was probably cloudy at the same time as well. But the exact time of re-entry was 03:46 UTC on the 19th of February. That would be 4:46 Central European time, where some debris was actually found in Poland. A couple of pieces of, I believe a couple of, I'm not sure if it was like a whole COPV, but at least a couple of COPV pieces have been identified in Poland. So they made it all the way through re-entry and all the way down to the ground. The re-entry of the second stage was seen from the UK, it was seen from Germany, was probably seen from Poland as well. This is just where, video accounts have been sourced from. So other people probably saw it, but they didn't record it and put it on Facebook or whatever. So we'll never know. But that's kind of the area that it was visible from. And the exact reasoning I will go through quickly. I'll just read through the quote because SpaceX did do an update on their website about it, so I'll just read through it quickly. SpaceX said, during the coast phase of this Starlink mission, a small liquid oxygen leak developed, which ultimately drove higher than expected vehicle body rates. As a result, following safe mission ConOps, the deorbit burn was not performed as the vehicle was successfully passivated on orbit to remove sources of stored energy. The teams are actively assessing root cause of the source of the leak and have already implemented mitigations for future flights. Of the remaining 2024 missions, they were either GTO, geostationary transfer orbit, interplanetary, or are in ODMSP, orbital debris mitigation standard practices, compliant disposal orbits. So TLDR, the other missions were, the second stage was not due to re-enter, right? So on the Starlink mission, SpaceX purposefully deorbits their second stage, and you'll see usually in the Pacific Ocean or in the Indian Ocean around South Africa, there will be a massive hazard area where SpaceX says they'll dump the second stage into. Usually most of it will burn up. So with this GTO missions, they don't do that because they've already used so much fuel to get to the GTO. They just put the second stage into what's called a graveyard orbit, right? An orbit which has been predefined as this is where you put your space junk, essentially, to keep the rest of space clean. However, this time around, they couldn't do the deorbit with the Starlink upper stage, which means it then just re-entered at random in an unpredictable location. So that's what's been going on with the second stage.
Man, seems like they've had quite a few upper stage issues over the past 6 months or so.
Yeah, but I think something else to consider is that they have to manufacture a new second stage for every mission, right? So they launched 134 times last year in 2024. They had to manufacture 134 second stages in a year, right? That's one in less than 3 days. Yeah. And then you do the next one, and you do the next one, and you do the next one. So when we're now getting to the point where SpaceX has manufactured like 450 odd second stages, we're getting to the point where you are starting to find these 1 in 300, 1 in 400 situations where stuff will break and stuff will stop working as expected. So luckily on this mission, it wasn't as detrimental as it was on Starlink Group 9-3, where they lost the payload. They didn't lose the payload, they deployed the payload, and it was just when they got to the deorbit burn that everything went awry. However, it does also pose the question, had this have been a mission with 2, 3, 4, 5 burns, with this second stage, that payload wouldn't have got to its desired orbit, right? So it's not something SpaceX can shrug off. They have to investigate this because, yes, the mission after Starlink Group 11-4 was a mission when they did 5 burns and it was 100% successful, payload got to where it wanted to go, etc., etc. Had they used the second stage as the other way around, the Starlink would have re-entered perfectly okay, but the GTO mission would have been stuck in low Earth orbit.
Good point.
They do a lot of flights. Is their problem rate any higher than anybody else's?
It feels like they've had a lot of problems with the upper stages, but as you pointed out, Ryan, the amount of flights
they've flown 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times more than everyone else, right? So it's like in the span of in that time period.
If you look at overall program totals, you have to get into comparing things like Centaur, the upper stage, to stage 2 of Falcon 9, and the problem rates are actually about the same, just to give you an idea. And that's historically with Centaur, because Centaur goes all the way back to the 60s, right? Centaur's not flying 100 times a year. It's maybe maximum 10 times a year in its heyday. But it's very much right in line with what we would expect for an upper stage. So it's actually normal, ? It's just that, they're doing it a lot. So there's going to be more opportunities for that to go wrong.
Thankfully, even with this one, there wasn't, any. There was some damage, but not any major damage, and certainly no loss of life. So, I'm at least grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to.
Go on, Jared.
Oh no, go Ryan. You're good for it.
Well, I was just going to say, the only bits that would really get through is going to be your COPVs, going to be maybe parts of the engine bell. These are the pieces of the stage which are designed to survive, very, very hot environments, very, very challenging environments, because you have high pressure gas, you have extreme high temperatures in your exhaust for your Merlin vacuum engines. So then it kind of makes sense how these specific components would make it through re-entry, which is, a very hot environment, compared to, say, some aluminium panels on the outside of the stage, right?
Shape and density also play a part in that.
Mm-hmm.
What was it you were going to say, Jared?
Oh, I was going to say, what dummy called them graveyard orbits and not orbituaries? That's my big question for this story. I swear. What the heck?
I didn't know you have kids. You got some good dad jokes.
I'm just saying that. Admittedly, that is not my joke. I saw it once, but I always love to pull that one out. So it's a good one. But I do feel like it is important, obviously, to be good stewards of any orbit that we're in around the Earth, and being good stewards as well with vehicles being flown into space also does include wherever your debris may land at as well. So, yes, SpaceX is responsible for any damage that they cause anywhere on the surface of the Earth. And very important to remind ourselves, too, it seems like we always have to talk about this anytime China launches something with the upper stage that stays in orbit, because they always talk about China, but we never seem to talk about any of the other groups that leave stuff in low Earth orbit. Think about how much of the Earth is land. So it's 29% total of the surface of the Earth is land. And then think about how little of the land that people actually live on. And then, you could sleep at night. So don't worry, you're not going to get hit by rocket debris. In the whole history of humanity, only one person has been hit by debris from a rocket. One person. And she got hit by a little piece of a tank from a Delta II. So back in the 90s. So she was out running. It literally fluttered. It was so small it fluttered down and hit her on her back. So nothing happened.
You're saying there's
to her.
Still a chance?
Yeah, she's saying there's still a chance. So Yeah, but for space junk, only one person has been directly hit by human-made space junk, and it did not do anything to her. So don't worry, you'll be fine. I promise.
As far as I know, I don't think even anyone in Australia got hit when all the debris from Skylab came down. So,
Nope.
yeah, low. It's pretty low. And something I find interesting, if somehow I can ever convince some billionaires or trillionaires to give me the money to do space salvaging, between China, Russia, and the United States, I believe it's somewhere around 5,000 upper stages that are still in orbit. I would like to go investigate them and see how many are in good condition and if any of them could potentially be refueled or strapped together and become an Aldrin cycler. I don't know, but that's just me dreaming.
I want my O'Neill cylinder, damn it. So.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I think, are we ready to move on to our next poll?
Go for it. I have. No. I was going to try and think of some cool pun about deorbiting, about how I've run out of stuff to talk about with the second stage, but that has failed spectacularly, and I am now stalling as we wait for the thing. There we go, and I can actually read it. Wonderful.
Write your obituary.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. I don't know if Jamie's ready to come back in for the second question. There we go. Okay, right. Here we go. Kind of related to the Falcon 9. How many Falcon 9s have launched so far in 2025? Is it 24, 25, 26, or 27? And your answer is the number or hashtag the number. And there you go.
I didn't have to hit the button. Someone hit the music for me. That was great. I better
A
get
phrase
this right.
said several times at the BBC every day.
24, 25, 26, or 27. To vote, be sure to put the hashtag or the pound symbol in front of your answer.
I think it's more than all of those. So like, hashtag 99. Is that what that went up on screen?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's what it feels like. All right. I'll start us off. I think it's a lot. I think it's 27. Hashtag 27. Jeez. He didn't even let everyone else guess. Oh, wait. Hang on. The chat room. What did the chat room get? Is it tied? I can't tell. I got to bring this down to the lower
No, the
screen.
chat room, it is tied with 26 and 27.
26 and 27. Okay. Let's keep going around the hosts and see what we get. Dutta, what do you think it is?
42.
42. All right. Jared?
I'm going with 27.
27. All right. Ryan? Oh, no, you can't guess. Just kidding. And Space Mike?
24.
24 for Space Mike. All right, Ryan, what's the answer?
Well, there's a chance that I've read this incorrectly, but I think, unless Next Space Flight is lying to me, the correct answer should be 24.
Woo! Is it bad when we all have access to the buttons? So the chat room did change their answer to 26. So it doesn't matter. 26,
Yeah,
27, and 20.
wrong. You can't change it now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They got like the lowest, the one that was the correct answer, 24, was their least. So chat room, you're just hard out.
We still love you all, though. Unless it really is 42. SpaceX has been secretly launching from Kwajalein Atoll this whole time, guys. No, just kidding.
Putting up secret Blue Origin payload.
Oh God, we found the sound effects buttons. No good.
They're all
will come of this.
classified. They're all classified because it's for the military.
No good will come. You know, the best part is we're moving on to another topic, and I don't have to turn my camera off for this one. So for out of our hour-long show, 55 minutes of it you didn't get me. So Well, I guess it's like 53 minutes because there were two trivia questions.
Depending on who you are, I'm sorry or you're welcome.
Hey, I've got haters in the chat room. So, like, for all of those haters in the chat room, you are welcome. All right. Our last topic is, as I understand it, Earth is doomed and we have no chance of survival. Is that an accurate representation, Jared?
Yeah, but not for the reasons you think. But you probably
Thank you, Dave, for gifting five Tomorrow Space News memberships.
Thank you very much, Dave. We love you.
So you've probably been hearing for a while now about 2024 YR4, which is the asteroid that's going to hit the Earth and we're all going to die and it's going to not be great. And Don't Look Up was actually a documentary. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a movie. And,
wait, that was a movie?
So
I thought that was a documentary.
Everybody was like, you should watch Don't Look Up. It's great. It's about the government ignoring scientists. And I was like, yeah, why do I need to do that? I can just go to work. So, 2024 YR4, this is a asteroid about 40 to 90 meters across, what we would call a city killer. So basically, wherever it hits, a 50-kilometer radius around it is gone. We, last week on the show, were sitting at a 1 in 45 chance of being hit by it, 2.2% roughly. It was a 3 on the Torino scale. So Torino scale is what we use, sort of like a magnitude chart for our current threat for asteroids. And the Torino scale at a 3 basically says that this is enough of an issue that we need everybody to go ahead and take a look at this for us. So if you got some spare telescope time, please use your spare time to take a look at that. The United Nations gets involved at that point, try to convince everybody to do that. And of course, in the astronomical community, we're all very tight-knit, so it didn't take very much. During mid-February, we had to deal with the moon in a position where its light was washing out the light coming from 2024 YR4. So it was really difficult to see it. We had to wait until just about a week ago after the show for the new data to start coming down to analyze it. So on Tuesday, the 17th, was it Tuesday? No, excuse me, Monday the 17th. It jumped up to 1 in 38 chance, a 2.6% chance. And then as more data came in, we were able to refine the orbit even more, and it jumped up even further to a 1 in 32 chance or a 3.1% chance. Oh my gosh, pull your hair out if you got any left. But as we started to get more data, that chance started to drop and drop and drop. So the next day it was a 1 in 95 chance, so basically 1%. Then it sort of fluctuated a little bit, and then it finally dropped to a 1 in almost 400 chance, so 0.5%. And we eventually downgraded it to a 1 on the Torino scale, so basically we're just going to keep an eye on it. And then I am happy to report that as of this morning, with a whole slew of observations, so we have now roughly about 70 more observations now than we did a week ago, we can now officially say it has a 1 in 26,000 chance of hitting the Earth. So a 0.004% chance of hitting the Earth. This is to the point that we have now downgraded it to a 0 on the Torino scale. 0 basically means that we've investigated it. It's not going to hit us. Looking good. So it's going to come really close to us, though. It's going to come within 200,000 kilometers, of the Earth. So that's still really, really close. But it's not. It's looking like the chance of hitting us is really, really slim. And yes, I know. So you're telling me there's still a chance, right? 1 in 26,000, but it's very, very slim now. So hopefully we won't have to worry too much about it.
So actually, Jared, right over here, they're saying in the chat room, I heard it's still a good chance of lunar impact. What about it hitting the moon? Like there's the whole bunch of like lunar stuff going on there.
Yeah, so there is still a possibility for the impact on the moon. If it did, it's actually going to occur during a waning gibbous moon, which is post full moon. So we're losing the moon, and actually, very awesomely, it would impact in the shaded part of the moon as well. So if you stayed up and you had binoculars, you'd actually be able to see the flash from the impact if it occurred. But Uh, yeah.
So
You
no
would
L
have.
Cross 2.0.
No, it's not. It's not looking like it right now. It's at about a 1% chance of that, and it's starting to narrow down. It's looking like it's going to get really close to the moon. I mean, I'm talking like maybe 12,000 kilometers from the surface of the moon, which is like that's skimming. That's pretty close. But yeah, it's not really looking like it's going to actually end up hitting the moon. It might be worth it though, in order to deploy some sort of or to use whatever assets we have in orbit around the moon at that time to actually observe it as it's going past, because they're going to get a much better view than we would get here on Earth. Even with everything that we have here on Earth, they're so much closer that it would be really,
Interesting.
really great. It might even be worth it to get a mission specifically to deploy assets to the surface of the moon. Maybe put them in a portion of the moon where it's not going to be in sunlight. That way we can chill down an infrared telescope or something like that. So, yeah, it would be great to have that. So we've kind of gone from the kind of things that we're going to get a lot of really good science out of this.
So if it does hit the moon, like no chance of it like cracking the moon in half, or like it's not big enough to do any real damage. You're gonna see a little flash, and that's about it. The moon will
Yeah.
obviously ring like a bell for about 5 days, and then that'll be the end of it.
Yeah, and again, you're gonna need at least binoculars or better to see it. But also, like, it doesn't look like, and the chances are also extremely slim for it to do that there. If we were on the moon, the Torino scale for impact would be a 1 right now, getting ready to probably transition down to a 0.
Samurai wants to know if it's close enough to the moon that we can do a grav-assist and capture it in some orbit. Would we be able to do that?
Well, you got to figure out how to do that, because its velocity relative to the moon will be about 14 kilometers per second. So you've got to be able to take something that's 40 to 90 meters across, moving at 14 kilometers per second, and slow it down. Good luck. That's all I got to say about that.
Expanding on the comment, I mean, slow gravity assist over multiple orbits, right? You don't have to do it all at once, right?
Yeah, but also, like, remember, this is a big thing of rock or stone that's like the size of a skyscraper, moving at 14 kilometers per second. That's really big. That's going to require a lot of propellant in order to do that, right? So we're talking about if this thing were to impact, we're talking about somewhere in the order of 3 to 5 megatons of energy being released, right? This is a small hydrogen bomb's worth of energy that's zipping around out there. So, like, you could try to slow that down, but you're going to need so much propellant in order to do that. Even if you try to take the most efficient, slowest route in order to do that, it's just not going to work, unfortunately. So also, you would want to make sure you're very precise with it too. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, which is that you don't want to inadvertently maneuver it so that it ends up hitting somewhere, right?
Did you just say maneuver it? Maneuver it?
We could maneuver it if we would want to. But you got to be careful with it if you were to do something like that. But at the same time, it's moving 14 kilometers per second. You try stopping a rock, even gently, at 14 kilometers per second. Let me know how it goes.
They got some fun ideas in the chat room. Capture it, hollow it out. The Space Hotel. That would be fun.
Oh, that'd be so much fun. Finally, a Hilton I would like to go to.
It's already as big as a skyscraper. Just make it. Hold up.
I just want to call you out on that, Jared. Jared, that was a 2001 Space Odyssey reference, and I don't think a lot of people caught that reference. That was like there. You were ready with that one.
Thank you. Yes, I'll go up there, meet my Russian friends. I'm not really going to tell them why I'm there, but hey, I'm just hanging out on the Hilton up here, aren't I? So yeah. And then
18 months ago.
Yeah, go give a little talk.
Speaking of observations, is it true that we've gotten a new dedicated asteroid hunter?
Yes, we are finally going to have our first in-space dedicated asteroid hunter, near-Earth object surveyor, which is being operated by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the homies, the home team for many of us on the Tomorrow show here. We are going to launch a infrared space telescope to the Earth's L1 point. And NEO Surveyor actually just had its contract approved to launch on a Falcon 9 in 2027. So around September 2027, it's going to do a 5-year survey of at least 2/3 of what are considered the baseline dangerous objects. So near Earth objects that are like 140 meters or larger. Those are things that you start have to worrying about, like continents from impacts. So yeah, we're very excited about it because it's an infrared space telescope, which means that we are looking for the heat coming off of these asteroids. So the telescope will be colder than the asteroids. So you chill down your infrared telescope to look at things that are hotter than the telescope. And this should allow us a massive advantage to trying to find as many of those those hazardous near Earth objects as we can. And it should help us find, by the end of its mission, we should be confident with about 90% of the position, or 90% of all of the near Earth object positions in the solar system. So very excited about this mission. It's very much a mission to save the world from future disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not want to get behind something like that? Ultimately, I would love to see a mission like this inside of the Earth's orbit. So somebody actually floated the idea of like drop one in the Lagrange point of Venus so that it could go there. And it would be great to have something like that, because then we would see, we would truly see it from a perspective where we would really be able to catch all of those objects that are potentially going to threaten the Earth. So, because you got to remember that the sun blocks our view for half of the sky when it's so we can't look at half of the sky anytime that we want to. And then even then, there's very small parts of the sky as well, because if things like dusk and dawn, you will take your calibration images at that time because it's still too bright then even to look for asteroids. Asteroids that we're hunting for are magnitudes of like 20 or higher, which is ridiculous. Like you need good-sized telescopes, a couple meters across often, to really figure out the precise locations of these things. So, yeah, it's going to be very nice to have. First of all, NEO Surveyor will be very nice. Secondly, it would be really cool to have a NEO Surveyor inside of the Earth's orbit. So,
and is that the same Lagrange point that James Webb is at, or is the opposite side?
It is going to be at the same one that J-Dub and Nancy Grace are going to be at. So
they'll have some
the Nancy
company.
Grace Roman Telescope. Yeah, it's going to have some friends out there. They're going to be like, "What are you looking at?" And they're going to be like, I'm looking at the Andromeda Galaxy." And then everybody's going to be like, "Hey, J-Dub, what are you looking at?" J-Dub's going to be like, "I'm looking at something really far away because it's so cold out there." So.
Surveyor, what are you looking at? Rocks.
I
like rocks.
Big fan of rocks.
But hey, I mean, its predecessor, though, NEOWISE, discovered the majority of the dangerous near-Earth asteroids. They discovered something like around 40,000 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, a lot of them, but there's still more that we need to hunt for. We're not done. We think we maybe know about where half of them are total. So we got a lot of work to do. And, Congress told NASA that by 2015, you need to have discovered 90% of these hazardous objects. And then they also did not give NASA any money in their budget to be able to do that. So
that tracks. That sounds about right.
This is actually the first time that something has been approved to allow them to do something like that. Besides the automated telescopes that we have here on the surface of the Earth. So things like Linear and Atlas and all of the other automated telescope groups that we have sitting around various places here on the Earth, like in Hawaii or Chile or the Canary Islands.
Fascinating. Hope everything goes well and it launches on time.
Yes,
I do love the Stan J comment for so was tough luck for the dinosaurs. They didn't have JPL.
very true. It's always what I like to say at work. Comets and asteroids are nature's way of saying, "How's that space program coming along, humans?"
Well, thank you very much, our chief astrologer Jared, telling us all.
The dangerous asteroid is now in retrograde. Nothing to worry about.
Oh man,
Giving us all of the astrology news.
Stars are telling me it will hit Orlando. Let it
On that note, I do want to thank everyone so much for watching this week. Dave Avery gifted 5 memberships a little while ago, and for all of our new members that joined for this particular show, so whether you joined or were gifted a membership, you're going to be able to view the member show right after this, where we'll talk about, who knows what we'll talk about, maybe the asteroid coming towards Orlando, astrology, and then a special shout out to Chris Hell, David Wilson, Jason Esquivel, Kenji Fox, Astro Tommy, and Nerdy Can Fan for either subscribing brand new or becoming or resubscribing to that membership level. Also, if you change membership levels, so if you upgrade your membership, we'll call you out there as well. So again, thank you to everyone who helps to make all of this happen. And by the way, there is a membership level that doesn't get your name on the screen. That's system support. And so if you just want to contribute a little bit of money to the show, you don't have a lot, like less than a cup of coffee per month, that is a level that you can do as well. And of course, all the way up to escape velocity, whatever level you're comfortable with, assuming you got value out of this show. And everyone who got their name in here, by the way, even if you're system support, even at $1, you'll still get access to that member show and all the fun hijinks that happen behind the scene. On that note, I want to thank everyone.
Do you not want to know the scores?
Oh, that's right. The scores. Yes. So we are keeping score of, we're tracking everything. Ryan. So how often it was the chat room right? How often was each individual host right? And at the end of the year, we'll tally all of these things up. And at the end of the year, we will have a overall winner. So chat room, you're competing against us. So you gotta get these things right, All right. So what are the current scores? This is week 3 that we've done this, right? So what are the current scores?
So the chat room is on 2. They got both wrong this week, so well done, chat room. So chat room is on 2. We have Mike's doing the best of everyone right now. Mike's on 4, getting more than half the answers correct. Jared is on 3. You're on a 50-50 track record so far, Jared, and Jamie, of course, on 0.
I don't have the thing. Wait, I gotta do this. Wait.
You can't vote wrong to the score, right?
Well,
William
I can.
Piero, thank you for becoming a member. Thank you very much.
All right. I will beat you all. I'm just saying, all of you. It is game on. All right. Thank you. Thank you all so much for watching Member Show. The Member Show is up next.